This is where you started when you signed up to come here today. With the picture of this farmer rancher sitting on the back of his pickup truck. That could have been my father-in-law. My father-in-law, before he got that daytime job in the city, farmed and ranched 160 acres down in Jefferson County, right north of Waurika, and that land is still in our family. And he would have had those jeans on. He'd had that long sleeve shirt on. He had that ball cap. He'd had that weathered look on his face. But what he wouldn't have is the computer. There you go. You have the answer to what my presentation would have been anyway. So why do we bother? Well, in HR, we went down this road 3 or 4 years ago where we were constantly asked to present material about generations in the workplace. It just wasn't working. Employers, managers, supervisors, man, these folks are different. Or when we weren't being motivated in the same way. Some people want that gold watch at the end of their career, and some could care less about the gold watch. And then there's just that physical appearance. Now, Pat Beck and I do a lot of team teaching on subjects, and I was in the room, and she was talking about generations, and that slide with the wonderful man in the top left-hand corner was up on the slide, and somebody in her audience actually had an employee that looked very similar to him and was the best employee. It was a restaurant owner, and it was the person who washed the dishes. Very faithful, always there, did his job, never sick, not a problem. So, hopefully, you don't have that guy walking in your door for training, but you could. As you were just hearing, some folks are turning back to agriculture for whatever reason, so you might have somebody that looks like that come in your door. The one in the lower left, I picked as I go to Microsoft's pictures, and I'm looking for a hippie. And that's what they gave me for a hippie. I promise you, that's not what hippies look like in my day. All right, here's a quote that Pat had in our program, and I like that adults use their experiences to build their self-identity. So educators, again, that's what this little piece is supposed to be, must communicate their respect for the experience itself. So if we have California people moving back here and they're coming back because they didn't like California, and where's Debbie in that question, I can tell you, even in HR, there is a specialized certification for HR professionals in California. They have their own rules and their own little tests to get certified. So maybe that's why they're coming back to Oklahoma, but we've got to respect where they're coming from. Do they learn differently? Absolutely, just like they work different. So here's the example. On this slide and the next slide, we're going to have another little teaching point for you. But you're sitting around at Christmas time, you decide to go see a movie. And that happens in many extended families. So what do? Grandma, and this is not me, although I would be age appropriate, would dig out the newspaper and start looking, right? Mom grabs the phone and calls the theaters to see what's showing and when. The son gets on the internet to see what's showing, and the little cousin Sally gets out the smartphone, turns it on, and brings up the program. Bang, dang, go. I've never done it, but it came on my BlackBerry. So I'm guessing, and I've looked at it, yeah, I'll punch in my zip code up here, 73120, and I could find out what's over at Quail Springs Mall. Now, what were the teaching points here for those that might be putting on programs between those two slides? Visual, for those that have to either see it on the screen in front of you or you have it in the handout. The auditory, those of you that are listening to me. And then the kinesthetic. I gave you some blanks to write things in. And that's the 3 learning styles that adults have. So if you're kind of looking ahead, how you're going to reach, how you're going to have programs in the future, know that you've got to kind of embrace all 3 areas, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So we're going to be taking a look at the generations and sort of, again, flying so that you get through in time to have lunch. The veterans or the traditionalists, for the most part, have retired. There are still some folks around in farming and ranching, I'm sure. There are plenty of self-employed people, insurance, stockbroker, and others that are still working. But in business and industry, most have retired. They're not out there building cars and doing other things in factories across this country. They're retired, assuming they're even still alive, but certainly Jimmy Carter as sort of that poster child to represent that group. Now, my father would have come from that, and perhaps your father or grandfather. So you heard those stories of poverty, Great Depression, the very first bullet being the most important one, really. My dad went to Rice University down in Houston. He lived in Pasadena. How many times have I heard that poverty story? He had two shirts, the one on his back and the one that was getting washed. Or eating that sandwich of mustard and bread. So if you're dealing with that kind of person, know that that's their value, that's their background. And so if you're trying to do any training for them, that top bullet, liking the traditional classroom structure, is the most important bullet on that slide for sure. And they like to practice alone. I can tell you, my dad in his retirement years, and my mother had already passed away, he got into teaching ballroom dancing. And yeah, he's dancing all by himself in the house, practicing and learning steps. So I've seen that generation train and get ready to do stuff. So the classroom implications, if you have one of those, again, they want things organized. The bullets, large font, please. That's going to apply to my generation too. And you tie the value of training to the organization. Again, that's the group that wants the gold watch at the end. Or in my dad's case, he got a food processor and a Canon AE1 camera, which of course has now been replaced by digital. Baby boomers, next generation coming, 46 to 64. You can see we've got a picture of Tom Hanks on there and President Bush and me. You're going to remember me, at least through this. Normally, what are we saying about baby boomers? There are 10,000 a day of us retiring. Yes. Couldn't come at a better time. I'm working on it. I did turn in my paper 2 weeks ago to retire and move to Oklahoma City. So 10,000 a day of us are retiring. That's going to create some jobs if we were thinking in terms of workforce readiness issues. But then some of these folks may be going back to the land to do something, either as a casual farmer or rancher, or maybe they're actually getting serious about it, doing it right. What were those defining moments in our background? The bottom bullet is number one, hands down, Vietnam War. We heard it from Dr. Sanders. I got to go to Korea instead of Vietnam, but we know it well, and we can talk about it a long time. Didn't go to Woodstock, but boy, wouldn't it have been fun. Okay, common themes. We're the first generation graded works well with others, and we're still saying that about people. When even talking about organizations, I was talking to somebody again in HR circles in the state of Oklahoma doesn't really play well with us. They don't come to our conferences and stuff. We're still saying it. They don't play well with us. And then you can see that song, and I didn't take the time to go get it for you. I want to teach the world to sing. All right, what do we value? Competitive workaholics. We were described by a career. He's a teacher, he's a farmer, whatever. Oh, not that he's been a husband for 42 and a half years to the same woman. No, that's not what, Works at Career Tech. Yeah. So we were described by the job we did, and it was a career. I missed so much of my only child's junior high, senior high years because I was building my business. Shame on me. I learned my lesson. She turned out okay. But that's the way we were. And we like to read printed sources. Of course, newspaper, you probably know. If we took a survey in here, I bet a good majority of you did not read the morning paper. So, what? So, okay. Boomers prefer to read printed sources. And it could be professional journals. It could be an ag journal, business journal. We do take notes. We underline things. And we can use technology. So that's our learning style. And our preferences, well, we are sensitive to criticism and look at those icebreakers. You know what an icebreaker is? If you're an instructor and you go in a room and you have some silly little activity, and I hate them, but you know, it's an icebreaker and people get acquainted and they kind of forget their troubles of the day, and then they get settled down and get going again. We like that. And we may have everybody go around and introduce themselves and where they were. Or we may have them tell something unusual. Where were you born? It's amazing. But that's our generation. Classroom implication, use large fonts. And provide team projects. We're used to team projects. And put us in charge. All right, I know lunch is 7 or 8 minutes away. Generation X. Now that's where my daughter is. I should have sent this slide to her just to see, does she really remember these things? But there's what was important to them. I didn't, you know, we're retiring at 10,000 a day in the baby boomers. Here are the X, 45 million of them. They're going to take our place. So when we're talking about workforce development issues, there is this gap that's going to be coming. That's over for my daughter. Oil embargo, I don't know if she remembers that. 3 Mile, Watergate, maybe not. Challenger, Gulf War, now that she would remember. She would have been almost 20. She would have been in college during the Gulf War. So that's in their background. They've been getting news, gosh, 24/7, MTV. Those extras probably had a TV in their room. For those out of my generation, I don't know, you might have been 5 or 6 or 7 before you got a TV in your room. But look at the bottom bullet. They think of work as a job and not a career. So again, normally when we're talking to business owners and managers, we're trying to get them to get past this thing that Xers and Ys don't stay on the job long. It's just a job, and they move on. They do start with the internet frequently. They might check out printed resources online, and if they decide to buy the book, they order it on. This is a real, if you can see the print, it says Microsoft Tech Support. And it really is. This picture's off of Microsoft's website. We didn't dream it up. Internet shaped the way they learn. It's been around a long time. The most important bullet on this slide, though, is that bottom bullet. Xers balance their work versus their personal time. And you may not have it where you work, but a lot of corporations and businesses have gone to PTO, paid time off. We don't have this bucket of sick time and this bucket of vacation time and a bucket of personal time. It's just all PTO. And the Xers are liable to use their PTO down to 0 every year. I'm going to retire with a year's worth of sick leave. That gives me, 1 more year of service. I wouldn't give that up for anything. I want that. Worked hard not to do that. But not this kid, not this generation. They do require lots of feedback. So if you're not giving feedback in your outreach, start doing it. Classroom implication, don't assign them work outside of class. Give them lots of attention. And on this slide, the important thing, lots of role play. These Xers, they just love it. And you can give them an assignment and they will run with it. They'll act it out. One of the fun things that we do in HR is personality testing. Make another fun class for you sometime and find out if they're drivers or expressives or analyticals or whatever the fourth one is. And then you get them all grouped and they work the same project. And it's amazing. Personality style, anyway, it's a whole nother class and we won't do it here. But it's a lot of fun for role play. Now let's talk about what really brought me here in the 4 minutes remaining. Generation Y, that's called several things. Millennials, net, the digital.com. I'll just call them Y. Huge number coming at you, 78 million of them. So that's, as those Xers take my place and other people like me, then there's plenty of Ys coming to take their place. Their defining moments, Oklahoma City bombing, because again, they were born in 81, so they have some memory. They understand Oklahoma City, especially those of us in this state. I know where I was when Kennedy was assassinated, 10th grade Geronomy, whatever, the math class. I know where I was in Oklahoma City bombing. I was in Sacramento on vacation. Geometry. 9/11. Those are things in their background. What do they value? Oddly enough, look at the second one. Patriotism and serving the community. This group of people is making up a good part of the people that are serving in Afghanistan right now and served in Iraq. And a great number are proud to have done it, and they do display patriotism, and they're out there volunteering in other ways around the world. On the next slide, another description of the whys is in there, but that's that digital gaming generation. They know what it is to run a game controller and score and do everything digitally. Their learning preference, yeah, they grew up with Big Bird and Bert and Ernie like the Xers, but they probably did it digitally. More internet than you've seen before. They understand bulletin boards, and it's not something you stick a tack in. Maybe you'll learn about that this afternoon. Here is their learning preference. Again, group work, and then skip to the bottom bullet. Teaching the process so they can continue to learn once the training is over. They're used to study groups, and they're used to doing group presentations. And here, the fourth bullet is what's important: relevant material. If you're working, you're having an outreach for that Generation Y, make sure it is relevant. There was a slide for people like me who are boomer trainers, and again, talking about doing introductions and putting it at ease, and the Ys won't like that at all. It's wasted time. Classroom implication, the second bullet. Use up-to-date technology and references. How about a flip chart versus an overhead transparency? If you go to the classroom, I still use flip chart once in a while because I want to slow down the pace of the training, and I want, generally, people are giving me answers. You ask the question, and then I write down their answer. It is a way to slow down the pace of things. Or I can get somebody in the class, they can come up and they can be the note taker. So flip charts still have a place in the classroom for your training, but overhead transparencies, I haven't seen anybody use in at least 10 years. So if you're still using them, move on. They're gone. You can still buy them probably. What works well, Educators for All, is making that connection between the classroom, which is on the left, and then we have this farm of cubicles on the right. Not everybody has a farm of cubicles. Some people have a farm of dirt, I suppose. Here was a quote, and I pulled this off and added it into Pat's program, about what Rotarians say as they're recruiting. All social civic clubs have to grow, and they struggle in towns like mine of Lawton. And so here's what one of their leaders will say, and the punchline is down toward the end in recruiting. Generation Y is outcome focused. Have a clear answer of why outcome of projects is important. So that was the advice, the leadership of Rotary, and I'm not a Rotarian, but that's what they're saying to attract these young people. Stay focused on the outcome. What works? Use us boomers and Xers. Talk about our professional experience. We ought to have some if we're getting ready to retire. But then the third bullet, use those Xers and the Ys if you've got something that is technology-based. Now this is a graph from SHRM. SHRM is the Society of Human Resource Management. It is the 6th largest professional organization in our country. 260,000 members, represents the human resource industry. And so somebody studied this, and we can see on the left axis the retention rate of material, and then across the bottom the degree of participation. If all we do is lecture in our programs, great. 10% retention. Give them some reading. The retention improves, so does participation. You go up that. Demonstration, discussion, practice by doing, but if we can get immediate use of learning, we've got a high degree of participation and a high degree of retention. That should work in your outreach programs. Best advice, You're going to learn some, and the most important thing is down on those bottom bullets. You're going to learn this afternoon about Twitter and Facebook, and pay attention. I've never tweeted in my life, but I follow probably 100 people. I'm a news junkie. So I was in a classroom this summer, team teaching with Pat, when Bobby Parker's trial is going on. I'm waiting for that result. I'm watching that on Twitter. Sure enough, it comes through. I'm in a conference here in Oklahoma City down in the Skirvin when Amanda Knox's trial and the verdict is coming in Italy. I'm watching. It's due at 2 o'clock, 2:10, 2:20, 2:30, finally at 2:40. It's going to come over Twitter before it is put out on broadcast news. The real example, Richard Engel, NBC's foreign correspondent in the Middle East, is the ranking person. He was embedded with the Allies when they invaded Gaddafi's headquarters in Tripoli, the palace. He's sending back pictures from the palace. It hadn't been on the national news yet. If that doesn't convince you, our Regents for Higher Ed, this is what they say. All of our 2-year, 4-year colleges in Oklahoma, 3,400 courses are online. How are you going to reach the wise? It's probably in front of you. It's that technology. Hopefully you're going to see it in the afternoon. If you missed this last week, this is one of my slides too. The Encyclopedia Britannica is going to stop publishing. I can remember, those of you that are my age, you know, my gosh, a home wasn't complete without Britannica or Grolier or World Book. Everybody had an encyclopedia. And even when I started OSU in the summer of '66, you go to the library, and the library's got lots of these. They're going to stop printing them. It's going digital. So here we are back at the beginning. It's technology, folks, of how you're going to reach that next generation. Let me give you some things, a little bonus point here. I hope your lunch is still warm. There is a film, and it's probably on YouTube. You'll learn about that this afternoon. If you have not seen it, Shift Happens. Shift, that's S-H-I-F-T. Now, this is really about change, and it runs about 7 minutes long. Not one single word is said. It's all music, and the screen changes. So you're getting messages, visual changes. And it's how things have just expanded over life. I mean, the knowledge base, the people, all of that. You might want to watch it because this afternoon you're going to learn about, again, change. Think about your own life. As I look just the last 5 years of my own, my wife happened to break her ankle in Italy, vacationing, fly home, get fixed. My father died. We sold our company. Her daughter got married for the first time at age 39. I announced my retirement, and I moved my furniture up here yesterday. Things happen. Change happens. If you want to know more about this human resource stuff, workforce readiness stuff, shrm.org, shrm.org is your website. There are millions of words on that website, and some things will not appeal to you, but more stuff about this generation, well documented, you'll find it there. If you want presenters, where I came from, Career Tech, they're people like me. They're looking at workforce readiness issues more than they're on ag and that type, but we're all in this together. I'll be here for a little bit to answer questions. Thank you for your attention.